Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by co-host Matt Carter, and we are going to talk about NC State's first round win in the NIT over Davidson last night in Denton, Texas. It was played in University of North Texas's arena there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But before we get too far into this episode, this podcast is brought to you in part by JFQ Lending. With interest rates below 3%, there has never been a better time to lock in a low fixed interest rate on your mortgage. You'll never need to think about refinancing again. Set it and forget it. And with JFQ Lending, you are guaranteed to get the highest level of customer service. They have an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and over 3,000 five-star reviews. Give Gage Kistner a call today at 480-401-1681 or email Gage directly at gkistner@jfqlending.com. That's the letter G, K-I-S-T-N-E-R at jfqlending.com. JFQ Lending, Inc., Equal Access Lender, licensed in over 40 states, www.jfqlending.com. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Google Play, pretty much everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can watch this on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up while you're there. Okay, Matt, let's jump right into it. You were a Debbie Downer in your game predictions, picking Davidson. You picked Syracuse in the ACC tournament. You were right. So maybe that negative energy was starting to get a little bit addictive for you. It paid off in Greensboro. You were right in Greensboro, but maybe not in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Davidson didn't. Going into this game, all I could hear about is Davidson's so good. They should have won the Atlantic 10. They're big. They can match up with State physically. They're not going to be scared of State because the Atlantic 10 is a physical basketball conference. Well, all those things still could be true, and maybe Davidson just had a bad night. But from what I saw an ACC team, big boy, an Atlantic 10 team. The Wolfpack pounded the paint, got it done against Davidson's less athletic roster. Yes, they had some size for a mid-major team, but the Wildcats had no answer for DJ Funderburk, Manny Bates, and many times Jericho Helms. So, Matt, kind of how do you evaluate this NC State win, an impressive 14-point win over a team that was a higher seed in the NIT, ranked in the top 60-ish in the net and KenPom, so solid team, good win for the Wolfpack, and arguably one of their best of the season.
I thought that you could make a case this was one of their best performances of the year. I noted in quick hits, it's only the second time all year that NC State led from start to finish. They had one tie at 2-2, never trailed. The only other time in a game this year they did not trail was North Florida in game number 2 of the year. So ultimately, NC State, to win this game, they were just going to have to prove that it's athletically superior to Davidson. And that's really an effort thing, right? That's just when you're athletically superior, if you play hard and you play with energy, you should be in good shape. And they did that. They certainly played with a boatload of energy right from the opening tip when the Wolfpack, not the Tar Heels, but the Wolfpack, scored a dunk on the first play of the game. Shout out to whoever that play-by-play guy was.
Rough night for the ESPN play-by-play guy. That was a rough broadcast.
Yeah. And then, to be fair, the game kind of played out a little bit like I thought it was going to play out, only more lopsided for NC State. I really thought NC State would control the game. My concern was Davidson would get hot late and kind of steal one. And, when you live by the 3, die by the 3, like Davidson does, and they did miss some open 3-point shots, they died by the 3. And State played well. And they made the adjustments. At one point, Davidson had the big man controlling the ball on the high post and trying to hit the backdoor cuts with I did think Corey Alexander kind of accurately pointed out on television was an attempt to pull Manny Bates away from the basket and open up the lane, and they got a couple of baskets. But you saw NC State adjust. So um, I was very impressed with NC State. I hope they schedule a lot of games like this next year. I mean, if you had played that game this past season, you're looking at a minimum of quad 2 game wherever it may have been held. And it would have been a real nice win for NC State. So, hopefully maybe we'll get a little lesson out of this and play more teams like this during the regular season. But, to me, I thought that one of the biggest stories of the game was the veterans. I thought the four older guys in particular, all stepped up, and that was huge because playing in the NIT is all about want to, and they clearly wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, from start to finish, you could see that this NC State team was energized. They wanted to be there. Everything that Keats has been saying leading up to the tournament, this time last week after NC State's early exit from the ACC tournament, I asked Coach Keats after the Syracuse loss, what his plans were for the NIT, if they would accept a bid, if that's something that they've talked about. And he basically, kind of deferred the question and said that they're going to have some conversations about it. And I guess what he did is he talked to some of his upperclassmen guys individually, kind of gauge their interest. And you could tell Keats wanted to go to the NIT. He could see the value in playing some additional games with his young roster, but it was more important for him to get that buy-in from the veteran guys, and all of them individually, according to Keats, were all in, and apparently they've had some of their best practices of the year, and I mean, it's truly reflected itself on the court, at least in this small one-game sample size. I mean, DJ Funderburk, offensively, can't remember a game as good as this all year. I mean, this is kind of the DJ Funderburk that I think Wolfpack fans maybe had hoped for this season in terms of an additional, year of growth going into his senior year. 21 points, 8 of 10 from the field, super efficient. He made a three-pointer. He made a second three-pointer of the season. I think it was his 14th attempt of the season. I know it drives NC State fans nuts when he shoots that three. And he promised after the game that he can shoot, so he must be electric in practice. But 1 of 2 from the three line. That was his first three of the season since the January 3rd overtime loss at Clemson. So when that went in early in the first half, that's when I knew this was going to be a good night for the Wolfpack. NC State's going to move on to the second round. And, you look around on this bracket, and there's a lot of similarly skilled teams, if you will. There's not one team in this NIT bracket that NC State can't confidently say, we play like this, we're going to win the game, we're going to win the tournament. So they got 3 more games left, and it would be, if you're going to make the trip to Dallas-Fort Worth and you're going to seclude yourself in a hotel for 2 weeks and extend your season in what has been a crazy year, constantly battered by COVID-19 in the game of college basketball, you might as well go win the whole thing. So I think that's their attitude. It was great to see the energy, and I mean, it was just pure dominance in the paint, 38-26 points in the paint. Wolfpack out-rebounded the Wildcats 29-24. Slight edge on the offensive rebounds, but there wasn't many misses for NC State.
Yeah, that would despite the fact that NC State shot a season best 58.8% from the field, and Davidson shot, I believe, 44.2%. Very unusual to out-rebound a team when you shoot that much better than they do from the field, and NC State did, and they also have more second chance points. So you're right, total domination in the paint. And the one thing I wasn't clear about, I was like you, I thought they would quarantine them for 2 weeks down in Texas, but DJ Funderburk mentioned something about going home after the game. So I wondered if with the week in between, if they're going back and forth in between rounds, might be something to look into.
Yeah, I mean, can you blame them if they wanted to come back to Raleigh to practice for a few days? But I mean, it's a whole week until they'll play again. So I don't
You
think
hear the
it'll be the
horror stories in Indianapolis right now at the players.
yeah. I mean,
And,
if they're going to keep them there, at least take care of them while they're
yeah,
there. I mean, if not, then come back to Raleigh and be at home and enjoy yourself. I mean, it sounds like they're enjoying themselves. I know they're going to follow whatever the protocol is, and Keats is, he talked about this being a first class experience for these guys, and that he didn't want to go if it wasn't going to be a first class experience. So seems like things are all good on that front. But interesting little catch there, Matt. And another interesting stat you brought up about the field goal percentage being the best of the season. That's one game off of NC State having its worst field goal percentage of the season against Syracuse. I think they shot 37% or so. I'm trying to pull it up in these game notes, but I can't pinpoint it. But it was a
it was
dismal.
36.2%. I had it in quick hits.
Okay.
36.2%. So over 20% better.
Yeah, and I mean it's just good to see a good shooting night after performance like that against Syracuse. I think you and I talked a little bit off air about how when a team like Syracuse in the ACC tournament is shooting the ball so well, that puts pressure on a team to perform offensively, and it's tougher to make shots when you feel like you have to keep pace with a team that's just feeling themselves. And it's easier to make shots when you're up, 10, 15 points, which NC State was for a majority of this game against Davidson. They played relaxed. The ball was going through the hole. So good effort there. We've talked a lot about the offense, but also we need to bring up the defense as well, Matt, because this Davidson team, they came into this game as a top 20 offense nationally according to adjusted offensive efficiency on KenPom. Davidson's been held to 61 points or less just 6 times this year. They're 1-5 in those games, and I believe over half of them have been to tournament quality teams or teams in the NIT. So, this Davidson team, you can tell they're well coached. Bob McKillop has been there for 32 seasons now. When Davidson had a good play draw, I mean, some of those buckets, it was like they just beat you, right? They just out schemed you. They got loose. They got a backdoor cut, and then they get an open layup. But other than those few gimmies when McKillop just drew up a great half court play, I mean Davidson, in ISO or just regular free sets, Davidson wasn't getting much on this NC State defense, and you got to kind of tip your cap to the Wolfpack on that.
Yeah, I thought it was very good defense. Yeah, I did think that Davidson missed some wide open threes that you probably don't want to give up on a regular basis. And you may have dodged a little bit of a bullet. But they really made, Lee and Grady had to really earn their buckets. And those were kind of the two go-to guys. I thought Grady was a really good player for Davidson. I mean, he's probably the one guy who athletically could hold up. The big guy certainly was creative around the basket, and kind of unique to guard. He's kind of that YMCA player, right? The guy who you don't think would be able to take Manny Bates down on the block and score about 3 or 4 times on a post move on him, but he did.
You want to try saying his name, Matt?
Is it Braskovic?
Brakovic.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was trying to remember what it was off the top of my head. One of many foreign players on that Davidson team,
Yeah.
by the way. I did think, that goes back to the athletic superiority that NC State had in this game. They were quicker, faster, more athletic. And so it goes to want to. Playing a man-to-man defense, it's all about want to and effort as much as anything, especially when you're more athletic than the team you're guarding. And the effort was there. Kind of dodged the bullet on a few 3-pointers, but all in all, yeah, it was. Like I said, I thought this was probably one of NC State's better efforts on the year. It kind of reminded me of the Notre Dame game on the road.
Yeah.
Similar to that. Maybe the Virginia game on the road. This was one of their best efforts of the year. A nice quad 2 win on a neutral court.
Hey,
Sorry, I can't get out of it.
you go play him in Davidson. It's a quad 1 win, Matt.
It could have been. Like
And
I
why
said.
don't you just schedule a home and home with these guys? I don't know. I like
I
seeing
believe the
NC State play
ACC
Davidson.
tournament is going to be in Charlotte at some point in the near future, so it might not be a bad idea to schedule a home and home and play them in the Charlotte Coliseum whenever the ACC tournament
I
is
mean,
in there.
sign me up. Makes sense. And the Atlantic 10, I mean, I know I kind of knocked the Atlantic 10 a little bit early on. We'll see how they do in the NCAA tournament, but it's still a really good conference. I mean, it's still one of the top mid-majors, if not the best mid-major, and you could almost put them up there with some of the lower-end high majors. So, in terms of net and all the analytics and rankings and all that stuff, pick a team from the top half of the Atlantic 10. I would always be in favor of scheduling a non-conference game like that. You mentioned a couple points that stuck out to me. Kellen Grady, Davidson's star guard. Yes, he is a very good player. He's a two-time first-team All-Atlantic 10. He was second-team last season, first-team All-Tournament. He's their leading scorer. He's top 3 in almost every statistic. He also finished second in the Atlantic 10 in three-point shooting this year in terms of people that met the minimum criteria of three-point attempts. He was shooting about 39% from 3. He was held to 0 of 6 last night against NC State. Some of that is luck. Some of that you got to tip your cap to the defense. I mean, they definitely made they went out of their way to make sure they had the body on Grady. And then another point you made that I thought was interesting is you compared it to the Notre Dame game. That was kind of my feeling coming into this, was that, I mean, you look on paper, Davidson is very similar to Notre Dame. They are a good offensive team. They can shoot the three. When the threes are going in, they're tough. They can knock off some teams. Ultimately, the athleticism lacks. They have problems down low against bigger teams. They can't really defend that well because of that lack of athleticism, but they're really well coached, so you never know what you're going to get out of it. And I thought it was look, NC State looked really good against Notre Dame. That's why I picked the Pack against Davidson. Turns out it was pretty similar in terms of the two teams' comparisons. And Bob McKillop, been around the block, veteran coach, 32 years there at Davidson, has done one heck of a job with that Wildcats program. He seems there to stay. But what I was going to mention about him is I asked him about NC State's freshman guards. We haven't brought them up yet. They had a quiet night offensively. I mean, Hayes and Sebron both had solid little games, 8 and 7 points respectively. Shaquille Moore was quiet on the offensive end, 2 points in 13 minutes. But I thought all those guys played pretty strong defense, and that's probably where they were a little bit better last night in terms of their, numbers and impact on the game. So I asked McKillop about, what he thought of those freshman guards, and he had some high praise for them. I mean, I think if you're an NC State fan, you watch the way they're playing in this NIT, you watch those freshman guards, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the future with that backcourt. And it means something coming from a guy that's been around the block, that has seen a lot of college basketball, that knows what good guards are. I mean, this guy, shocker, I don't know if you knew this before last night, Matt, but Steph Curry played at Davidson. I learned that last night because of the ESPN broadcast, but that was...
Who?
Steph Curry. You ever heard of him?
No. Yeah.
Oh, well...
I'll look him up after this. No, I didn't know. Did he play NC State?
Yeah, he did, actually, a couple times. He played pretty well. But anyways, McKillop knows his guards.
Real quick, I'm wondering what NC State were going to do after the game. You have any idea what they might have done after the game? I don't know what they do after.
All right, we're no more ice cream questions for the rest of the year. That was the last one. I'm texting Corey. We're done. We can't the ice cream thing, we can't anymore with the NIT. We got it out of the way. But no, it was good to see everybody in good mood. Where I was going with that, we're being sarcastic. Steph Curry, obviously an NBA legend.
I was just going to mention the ESPN angle on that. That's where I was talking about. You could have put a drinking game on two topics that ESPN would cover. One was Curry and the other was ice cream. And sure enough, they got him. And in hindsight, you could have put a third one on Corey Alexander in the NIT, because but
That's a match. That's a match made in heaven, or maybe
yeah.
somewhere else. But
Mhm.
yeah, the ice cream. I think I tweeted like ESPN talking about Davidson. Are you aware that Steph Curry played at this school once? And then ESPN on NC State. These guys occasionally eat ice cream after road wins, so it's just like, oh god, you get so nauseated from the ice cream talk. But it's fun. I'm glad that they have fun with it. It's I think because they've had so many wins away from home down the stretch here. I think state fans aren't used to hearing the ice cream 6 different times in the past month or so. So, but anyways, high praise for those freshman guards. I thought they played well. I thought everybody played well, to be honest. I don't think I could pinpoint one game that had a bad game, and I think that was a complete opposite of what happened in the ACC tournament, where you couldn't really point to one person and say they had a really good game.
I start to finish. Yeah. Yeah, I thought Beverly had a good first half against Syracuse. I thought maybe Thunderbolt kind of woke up in the second half, but this was a totally different performance. So why don't we give out our game balls here?
Sounds good to me. I'll let you start because there's plenty of options.
Well, there's an obvious one too. I'll take Mr. Obvious and Thunderbolt, who's my player of the game in quick hits column, 21 points. I think he had 7 rebounds.
Yep.
One heck of an assist. He really should have had 2 assists if Jalen Gibson hadn't blown the high percentage shot when they beat the press with about 2 minutes to go.
Yep.
Shout out to Jalen Gibson. Nice form on the free throws. Made 3 or 4. Looked good at the free throw line. But Thunderbolt that's what you mentioned earlier. I think that would be all ACC version of DJ Thunderbolt that a lot of people were hoping would prevail this year. And maybe he didn't quite have that kind of year. Obviously, he wasn't all ACC, so he didn't have that kind of year. But it was still a heck of a performance. And he was sure-handed. He played with a purpose. And he was efficient. He was energized. You could tell the team fed off of it. Both ends of the court. So, fifth-year senior stepping up with some leadership in that regard. And you can tell he's enjoying himself. So, I'll give it a DJ Thunderbolt.
Well, good pick. Two good ones remaining, both forwards. I think you gotta at least give an honorable mention to Jericho Helms, who I looked it up during the game because I was wondering when he was 2 of 3 from the perimeter. I'm like, you know what? As much as fans like to criticize Jericho Helms, and there's kind of that joke or that feeling out there like, don't let him hit one early because he'll be taking too much. And I guess sometimes that can be true. But I was curious. I looked up his stats year by year on his three-point shooting, and something that we have not talked about enough this year is Helms has really developed an efficient game from three, and he really hasn't been, because he's allowed his game to go inside out more so, he's kind of leaned into his role on this team as a true stretch four. By taking a little bit less attempts and kind of scaling it back to how many attempts he did as a freshman, he's really improved his efficiency. You look at his numbers year by year. As a freshman in 2018-19, he shot 31.9% on 69 attempts. The next season, his sophomore year, last year, he shot 33% on 103 attempts. And then last night, at one point he was 2 of 3, so I tweeted it when he was making 40.2%, but he actually shot one more and missed it last night. He finished 2 of 4 from beyond the arc. You'll take 50% every day, but he shot 39.7% on 73 attempps through the first round of the NIT this season. That's a sharp increase of nearly 7% from behind the three, and you're seeing consistent growth within that game. So, it makes you excited for what's to come with Jericho Helms if he can maintain that presence from the perimeter and,
Right. Just real quick before you give out, I'm assuming you're about to give out a game ball to Manny Bates, but real quick,
Yeah.
um, that's what Helms was known for. That's why he's at NC State. They saw him make a bunch of threes in an AAU game. His senior year in high school, he was a lights out 3-point shooter. Sometimes it takes a little while to translate to ACC level basketball, but you know, he's always been known. That's what he was known for in high school. The question was, is athletically, could he hold up or transition to a stretch forward type? But he was a high 40% 3-point shooter as a senior in high school, and so you're starting to see that now translate. And that's not unusual to take a couple of years to really translate over to ACC basketball. And I think you'll see the same thing from Cam Hayes. He's another guy I think you'll see being a really good, pretty high percentage 3-point shooter down the road.
And Helms's shots look pretty too. Like they've got really
They
good
got a little
arc.
bit of a knuckleball to it on the spin,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the form is nice.
yeah.
For whatever reason, it kind of knuckleballs out when it gets out of his hands.
And I mean, he sends the balls pretty high. So I mean, good chance that he can get a little shooter's roll, and maybe that lack of spin. Sometimes he gets a little bit benefit of the doubt from the rim. But I don't know, just something to point out because I don't think Helms gets credit where credit's due sometimes in terms of. We talk about Braxton Beverly, Thomas Allen being the perimeter threats on this team. Helms is leading the team in 3-point shooting. And, I mean, right now, it's tough to say. I'd still probably trust Beverly. If, bet $100 on one of them to make an open three, I'd probably put it on Beverly. But, Helms got to give credit where credit's due. All of that said, and I'm not going to spend as much time on Manny Bates, unfortunately, but I am going to give him the game ball. 14 points on 7 of 7 shooting from the field. I mean, what else can you say? That's as efficient
8
as it
rebounds,
gets.
too. Team high 8 rebounds.
I was getting there, Matt.
Okay.
I'm not skimping over the
What else
rebounds.
could you say? So I figured out I'd throw in what you.
What else can you say about his shooting percentage? He was perfect.
Okay.
He's just developed. His development has just been really solid for this NC State team. He is not the same player that he was last year. He's really developed a nice offensive game. He's getting more aggressive and consistent on the boards, which is something this NC State team really needs from him, particularly if they're going to lose a DJ Funderburk next year in the seasons to come. Didn't get a block shot, but you know what? When Manny doesn't get a block shot, that's probably because NC State's playing pretty good defense, actually, because they're probably not getting many opportunities at the rim. Manny's going to get his blocks if there's opportunities. But if there's a lot of opportunities at the rim, that's probably not good for the Wolfpack. So, good game from Manny. As you mentioned, Matt, team high 8 rebounds. And plus, I think he had an assist. His passing in the post is something that it adds another element to his game that makes you think, man, this guy could be, an all-ACC center with, the 3 seasons of eligibility he has left. Who knows what his future holds, but if he keeps developing at this rate, he's going to be a scary guy in this league. But those are our game balls. DJ Funderburk, Manny Bates, Jericho Helms, honorable mention. Good performance all around. NC State will play next Thursday in Dallas-Fort Worth on ESPN against the winner of Colorado State and, correct me if I'm wrong here, Matt, Buffalo? Okay. So you think Colorado State's probably winning that game, considering they were the second team out of the tournament field, so technically the number 1 overall seed of the tournament. But who knows? It's the NIT, and anything can happen.
All I know is Buffalo took Syracuse to overtime early this year.
Well, that's something that State didn't do in 3 times. So
yeah, so I have no idea.
Well, we're gonna wrap this up. I gotta go to the post games or the Zoom for the women's basketball players. But anyways, please follow us on social media. You can follow our main account at the Wolfpacker. You can follow me personally at Justin H. Will. Give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on the Wolfpacker.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Google Play, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can always watch us on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up. Use that promo code PACK60 at thewolfpacker.com for a free 6-day trial on all of our premium content, news, and analysis. Plus gives you access to the message boards. I know, wrestling's going through their championships right now, so if you want to keep track of the live blog there, we've got that on the front page, and we've got some good nuggets from our resident wrestling expert Ryan Tice on the message board. So use that promo code PACK60. Follow us on social media. Do all that good stuff. Subscribe to the pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. For Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.